Hello everyone, I'll assume that by now most of you have once or twice seen that meme or internet image or factoid. Basically one of the geographic coordinates of the Great Pyramid of Giza matches in its first few digits the speed of light in meters per second, which is unimpressive and even disappointing, and I think most of the more rational minded people have already come up with many reasons as to why this is unimpressive, but today I'm going to explain by this example a little bit more about how to basically think through and estimate statistics like this, or generally think through things you see, or think through ideas and make a rough estimate to see if it's reasonable at all. And I'll show you why I find this not just unimpressive, but indeed very disappointing, though that might be a little bit of a cliffhanger. Now, some of the first arguments why this is unimpressive and definitely not evidence of some great alien conspiracy or whatever is that these are basically arbitrary values being taken, that we are using measurements in the metric system, which is, let's face it, the best system of measurement we have today, but it wasn't invented by the time, and even though it's a clever and useful and practical system, it is still more or less arbitrarily defined. And to start our actual estimate, another argument is that the size of the pyramid actually makes a lot of these digits irrelevant. So let's just go with rough ballpark numbers, and the Pyramid of Giza is several hundred meters in size, and you can't really meaningfully define a position for it to more than plus minus 10 meters, and the radius of the Earth is a little over 6 million meters. So using more than 6 digits in the coordinates for the Great Pyramid of Giza is just utterly meaningless and basically just random digits, and in the case when you see this type of meme pop up, it's usually these digits are being picked and chosen to resemble the speed of light, but anything after the first 6 digits really has nothing to do with the pyramids anymore. And by now it is very well known that statistics are a thing and coincidences happen, and over a lot of chances you would expect coincidences to happen once in a while. And even if we take just this specific example, say the speed of light and some ancient structure, there are lots of ancient structures and archaeological sites, and in terms of measurements and geographic coordinates, you can probably think of 4 or 5 numbers to describe them, which is a lot of numbers, and it's really not a very surprising coincidence that one of these numbers matches some fundamental physical constant in its first few digits. But we can take it a step further and just go for coincidences at all and give a very rough estimate. So we were talking about 1 in a million chances, since we were talking about 6 digits. And I've just opened the front page of Wikipedia, and it tells me they have 5,571,970 articles in English. Now, many of them are probably irrelevant to this idea in general, but those that are probably have several numbers associated with them, so as a rough estimate we can just take these roughly 5 million articles, or roughly 5 million numbers, which you could match up with each other. That gives you roughly 12.5 trillion pairs. That's 12.5 million pairs. So you might expect to find roughly 12.5 million examples for coincidences as impressive as this 1 in a million chance coincidence, like the first digits of the speed of light matching some geographical coordinate. And given how many people are using Wikipedia and how good our brain is at noticing weird coincidences and how connected we are, I'd really expect a lot of these coincidences to be found by now. And one might expect the kinds of people who spread such things like conspiracy theories and weird factoids to have found a more impressive coincidence by now. For example, there should be about 12,500 1 in a billion coincidences. There should be about 1,001 in 12 billion coincidences, and given how many different ideas and topics there are, you're probably gonna find a matching or interesting one you like among these 1,000, so I'd really expect the kinds of crazy conspiracy theory supporters who come up with such memes in the first place to have found a coincidence question mark that is about 12,500 times more impressive, and that still wouldn't really be impressive. It would be expected, and it wouldn't be quite as disappointing as this one, which really is just the easiest to find, least impressive one in a million, but also one out of a million coincidences. Now, of course, you can run numbers yourself, but just in case you're interested, a few other things about coincidences are the probability of two random dates without year matching up is obviously 1 in 364. With year, of course, well, in recent history, let's say the last 100 years, there have been about 36,400 days. It gets a bit more complicated even for names and words, whereas certain letters are just way more common. For example, an A or an E are more common in words as well as names than a Z or a V, so the probabilities of words or names matching up or being acronyms of each other or being each other in reverse are a lot higher than you would calculate for just random noise if each letter was equally frequent. Apart from that, roughly speaking, there are a few hundred to a few thousand names in common use, so you could expect two people to have matching first names in a list of roughly 30 people. And among 1,000 people, you might find two people completely unrelated with matching first and last name. And I mean, you can easily find a list of more than 1,000 historically somewhat relevant persons, and of course, just like this, several coincidences can add up if they are frequent enough and there are enough chances. It's just a slightly more rare coincidence. For example, as we said, the chance that the speed of light would in its first digits match up with the coordinate of the Great Pyramid of Giza was 1 in a million, but we would also expect to find a million coincidences this likely, which means that among these coincidences we would find one with an additional added 1 in a million coincidence, which would be much more impressive, like finding a building where both coordinates match up in their first digits to some universal physics constant, or finding people who not only share the same first and last name, but also ran into each other several times while being completely unrelated and both being historically relevant. That would be more impressive, but it's still something you'd expect to find once in a while. And here, additionally, which is often overlooked when thinking about statistics or coincidence, there might even be factors that relate these things to each other, so it's no longer a statistical distribution anyways. So the lesson is coincidences happen, even weird ones, and I thought we could use a slightly more funny example to talk about them. But of course, properly analyzing coincidences and statistics is also fundamental for risk and safety management, which is something I might also talk about at some point in a slightly more wide variety rather than just about the Falcon Heavy, which is a bit difficult because I really don't like talking about incidents or crashes where people got harmed if it's not utterly necessary. And while I do know of a few very interesting aerospace incidents and crashes where actually no one got harmed, I'm looking for more examples, and I'm still looking to expand my knowledge of incidents where actually no one got harmed in the end, even though it was clearly a dangerous accident. Either way, I hope you found this little rant or talk about statistics, coincidence, and easy to impress people somewhat interesting, and as always, thanks for watching.